Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. Welcome back. If you're new to me, hi, my name is Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. If you're not new to me, welcome back. Today for you, I have a video that I have never seen on BookTube before, at least not titled this. The concept of this video, though, I have seen utilized within multiple videos on YouTube. And essentially what this video is, well, you can see from the title, Reflective Reads. This is me reflecting on a read that I have previously read before. Doesn't sound very exciting, right? Sounds kind of boring. Like, really? Who cares? Well, I do. And I want to talk about it. Because this year alone, I have read 6 books that are rereads for me. Some ranging within 10 years of rereading it, some ranging within 20 years of rereading it, and some ranging almost to 25 years of rereading the book. And I feel like this is a topic that should be talked about. Many booktubers will reread a book when a new installment of that series comes out. That's all well and dandy. That's great. In some series, such as example Outlander, it takes her 10 years to write a book. It's a long time. Some others, 1 every 2 years. A lot can happen in that time frame, whether it's 2 years, 10 years, or 20 years. A lot. And this year, when I was rereading some of these books, I found myself in the process of reading the book, not just enjoying the story, but trying to think back to where I was the first time I read this book, or at least the last time I read this book. Some of these are multiple rereads. And trying to figure out if this experience was different and why it was different. Obviously, it was different. I'm much older. But I found that some of the books, I had just as positive experiences I remember having the first go around. And others, well, not so much. So I thought about it, talked to my husband about it, and he thought it would be kind of a neat idea. A little bit about my background was when I graduated from college, I graduated with a bachelor's in history with a double minor in philosophy and general women's studies. The philosophy is what I want to point out. The study of thought, the study of discussion. And I feel like this just fits for me to do this kind of series. I love discussing books. I love discussing experience of books. I love discussing pretty much anything to do with said book. So this reflective read series kind of encompasses everything. Now, granted, I have to sometimes, in some instances, remember far back to almost junior high. And that's okay. Because books are, for me, kind of like songs or kind of like smells. They're experiences. They're not just something that you do. Some books are meant for enjoyment. Some books are meant to kill time. Some books are meant to teach you something. Some books are meant to make you think. But every single book is an experience. And that experience is affected by what's going on in your world at the time, how you're feeling, your age, environmental factors, whatever. It's affected by everything. And basically the easy way to explain this is some books leave an imprint. And when you think of that title, or you hear somebody talk about it, your brain, without even actively doing it, just subconsciously reverts back to that first memory of when you read that book. At least for me, that's what happens. Same thing happens with smells. I smell something, I immediately think of a memory attached to that smell. I hear songs. I immediately think back to memories attached with certain songs. Now, this doesn't happen with every single song. It doesn't happen with every single smell. It doesn't happen with every single book. But there are some books that just kind of dig in and never let go. And so far, some of the books that I have reread are those books, or I probably wouldn't have reread them. I don't tend to reread books that I don't like. So I thought it would be a very cool experience, maybe a cool thing to start this reflective read series. And my guinea pig for this is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The reason I picked this book is it's one of the most famous books that in this reread grouping that I have. And it also so far was the most polarizing experience. And so I thought I'd have more stuff to flesh out, more things to talk about, to give you guys a better idea of what this video series is about. Now, this video series is not going to be one you're going to see on a regular basis. It's not going to be monthly, because it's only going to happen when I reread a book that I've already read and I feel like the experience really never changed, or the experience changed drastically from the first time, because that's what I want to discuss. Now, I do have some books that they were just as positive the first time, so I might do like a grouping of those. But this one, when I look at this book, I don't look at it the same way as I did when I was 17 when I first read it. So I want to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Little background on the story first. Wuthering Heights was published in 1847 under a pseudonym of Ellis Bell. Emily Bronte's name actually did not appear on it until 1850, when an edited version of it was released by her sister, Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte took some liberties, edited some grammatical things, along with the character of Joseph's speech patterns. The character of Joseph's speech pattern in the original publication is written in a very thick Yorkshire dialect, which, unless you're from Yorkshire, was very difficult to understand. And he does have some points in the book that help develop the plot along. So it was very confusing for a lot of people to read. So Charlotte re-released it under Emily's name, not her pseudonym, Emily Bronte's name, and kind of just fine-tuned his speech patterns. This version, however, the Penguin cloth-bound version, I'm pretty sure is using the 1847 publication, because I do not remember his speech being that hard to decipher. So that's one of the points we're going to get to. More about the book, though. It is a Gothic tragedy. That is the genre category it falls under. And the author was the second youngest of four. She was born in Yorkshire, England. She passed away December 19th, 1848, almost a year after this book was published. She was 30 years old from tuberculosis. And from what I can understand, and from what I have researched and learned, many people believe she died thinking this book was a failure. And if you read this book in high school, you know she wasn't. It wasn't. Or it still wouldn't be taught today. Which brings me to the first time I encountered Wuthering Heights, which was when I was a senior in high school. I was in AP English, or Advanced Placement English, my senior year. In 2005, the spring of 2005, when I graduated, my English teacher, Mary Ann Kirkpatrick, handed us Wuthering Heights. Off the bat, I knew this book was going to be a tragedy, because Mrs. Kirkpatrick's whole curriculum was tragedy-centered. Honors English was the same way. Macbeth, almost every single Shakespearean tragedy we read, and a lot of Gothic horror novels, such as Dracula, Frankenstein. We even read The Bell Jar in junior year. So her curriculum was very focused around tragedies. So we knew off the bat when she handed us this book, oh, this is going to be a tragedy. Either everybody's going to die, or something bad's going to happen to the two main people, and we're just going to have to live with it. Now, I had heard of the Bronte sisters, but since this is Emily Bronte's pretty much only fictional work, she does have a few bits of poetry that were published along with her sisters. This was my only experience with her at the time. We had not read any of her poetry. I remember Miss Kirkpatrick handing us a family tree. So she handed me the book, and then she handed me a family tree, because I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something along the lines that Emily Bronte wasn't really original when it came to naming her characters. And she's not. There's 2 Catherines. So she gave us a family tree to keep the lineage straight, which I thought was kind of interesting, as well as when I got this edition of this book, I noticed that I have to get to the right page. It contains the family tree. So I thought that was really funny that my edition still had the family tree. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. I remember, not the exact family tree, but I remember having a family tree to follow along with this book. I thought it was fantastic. A little fun moment there. Well, we get into reading the book. Now, mind you, I am 17. And my senior year, prom's coming up. It's a big, exciting moment, second semester. And we're assigned to read a tragedy, a romantic tragedy. So we're assigned. We start reading it. I remember instantly loving this book. I distinctly remember, I don't know what chapter it was, but I remember coming home and sitting on my couch in my parents' house and just reading. And I couldn't stop. I read past the allotted chapter for that night and I just kept going. I remember the next day being in study hall with Mrs. Kirkpatrick, and I had reached the point where Heathcliff finds out that Catherine's dead. And I remember crying in my study hall and everybody staring at me. And I'm not giving a flying fuck. I couldn't have cared less that people were staring at me while I was crying about a book. Because at this point in time, I looked at Heathcliff and thought he was the most romantic character I have ever seen in my entire life. He loved Catherine so much that even her passing, he wanted her around. He didn't care that she died. He didn't want her to be happy and in peace. He wanted her with him. So he says one of the famous lines of, "I hope she wakes up in torment," and haunts me. And 17-year-old me thinks that is just the most romantic thing I've heard in my entire life. I couldn't get enough of it. And I was upset that Catherine was gone. And I remember reading the passages before and thinking, God, Catherine's husband is a dick. She doesn't even love him, and he freaking knows it. Why are you torturing yourself? I'm thinking he is the biggest moron in the world, because obviously she loves Heathcliff. Just let her be with him. Now, mind you, this is a 17-year-old who at this time has never been kissed, never been on a date, never had a boyfriend, never had anybody of the male persuasion pay one bit of attention to her. And I just wanted a Heathcliff so bad. I remember wanting one so bad. And during this moment, Miss Kirkpatrick comes over to me and asks me to leave the class and go in the hallway to calm myself down because I was making a scene. Now, what she didn't realize was because it was the book I was reading. And then when I shut the book, she realized what it was. And she said, "You take as much time as you need, sweetheart." And I remember finishing the book shortly after that, and just discussion after discussion after discussion about all the innuendos in the book, and me just hanging on Miss Kirkpatrick's every word and arguing with people that didn't have the same opinion as me, because some people saw Heathcliff as a giant jerk, and I just could not see how they would see that. It's like, don't you see how much he loves her and how much he cares about her? Like, he's literally destroying his life just because of her. That is how much he's enamored and obsessed and just, obsessed with her. And I just thought it was the most romantic thing in the world. And my senior year, we had to write a bunch of papers. And I remember writing most of my papers about this book, including my senior thesis, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think I got an A on, which props for me. But I just wrote everything I could on this book. I read backstories, literary articles about it, because we had to use literary articles for our resources. And I love this book. So much so that when I got to college and I took some college lit courses, I took a college literary tragedy course. Like, that's all we were going to read. And I was upset when my teacher did not have us read Wuthering Heights. I was like, how are we not reading Wuthering Heights? It's like the greatest tragedy known to man. You're making me read Romeo and Juliet? Those are two 13-year-olds that ran away and end up dead. Like, that's not tragic. That's stupid. That's bad parenting. You know, that's my book. And I would argue with my professors about this. But Wuthering Heights was my favorite book for a long time. A long time was my favorite book. So when February's TBR came around, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that my classics challenge was going to be Wuthering Heights. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I knew right off the top. Didn't matter. I was going to read that book. And I just so happened to have the most beautiful edition I've ever seen of said book. When I received these for Christmas, I told my husband that I wanted to start collecting these Penguin cloth-bound books. And I had 2 box sets on my Christmas list. I had the Jane Austen set and I had the Bronte Sisters set. And he asked me which one I wanted most. And I said, well, I really want the Bronte Sisters because Wuthering Heights is one of my favorite books. And I'd really like to have it represented on my shelf in a nice way. Because the only copy I had was this crappy little Scholastic mass market paperback edition, which sucked. It wasn't pretty at all. I was like, my favorite book should be represented in a nice format. And I hadn't really found any other edition that I really liked, but I love the aesthetic of this one. So when I picked up the book, and I started reading it, I mean, you could watch my February TBR and you could see how excited I am that I get to read this book. I say it's my favorite love story. I love Heathcliff. I love the pain on the moors and the tragedy. I just love it. I just eat that shit up. I say that. I don't think those exact words, but I say something along those lines. And when I started to read it, well, I'm not 17 anymore. I'm 34. And the entire time I was reading it, all I could think of was how miserable these 2 people are. How horrible they are to each other and to everybody else around them. Heathcliff had a shit childhood. I'll give him that. Catherine sort of was nice to him, but her brother was a dick the entire book. And I remember him being a dick when I was in high school too, so it didn't really faze me that I still felt the same way. But when it got to when they were older and just the things that they were doing, the games that they were playing with each other and with other people to fuel this toxic cesspool of feelings, I had to put the book down and look at my husband dumbfounded and say, how the fuck was this my favorite book in high school? It was not the same reading experience. It wasn't even close. I did not cry once in this book. I did not become overwhelmed with emotions. I had to force myself to pick up the book multiple times because I didn't want to read this hate spew anymore. And I just kept getting more and more depressed the darker and darker the book went. I looked at Heathcliff's character and thought, I used to love you. I used to search for you. And if I found you now, I'd put a bullet in your head. You're a horrible person. And Catherine's a bitch. She is vile. And don't even get me started on the way Heathcliff treats his freaking kid when he finally meets him. Oh my God. I'm a parent now, and I can't imagine treating my child like that. he literally says, well, when he dies, because, you know, he's going to die soon because he's pretty much worthless, everything will come to me. Great. And he blackmails Catherine's daughter into marrying his son. And then, of course, you know, he dies. And Catherine's stuck there. And the only character that actually comes out sort of kind of clean is Henley's kid. And he's treated like shit the entire book. By his dad, by Heathcliff, by everybody. He's treated like a servant, and he's the only actually legit, like, Earnshaw left. And I'm sitting here, and I'm like, how on God's green earth did I think this was romantic? The reading experiences could not have been more different if I tried to make them. So, after I finished said book, I started breaking it down. I didn't tab it, but I kept notes as I was reading it on different instances, and one of them was the dialect of Joseph that I mentioned previous. I do not remember his dialect being that obnoxious to read. I mean, it is awful to try to read it. It's bad. So, I don't remember that experience at all. Maybe I might have blocked that one out because it's bad. But then I get to scenes when Catherine died. That was the scene I started bawling my eyes out in high school in study hall. And I'm sitting here and Heathcliff is saying, I hope she wakes up in torment and never rests in peace. I'm sitting here, I'm like, how could you say you love this woman? You don't want her to be at peace? The fuck is wrong with you? You're insane? I'm so angry. I go 17 years old, I'm crying, and here I'm like angry, visibly angry. I'm making faces like, who the hell do you think you are? What? When Catherine doesn't get her way because her husband says Heathcliff can't come over anymore, she runs up to her room and throws a fit and basically acts like the biggest drama queen known to man, and then happens to actually get sick, which fucks with her brain, and then she dies. All I could think of was, well, you brought that on yourself because you point blank told the servant that you were going to act like a brat to get your way. You told her you were going to do it. And it didn't work for you. You didn't get your way. And so you're going to just stop taking care of yourself? Stop eating, stop bathing, open the windows in the middle of the night where it's freezing cold and die of like pneumonia type shit? Okay, because that's really going to get you what you want. Yeah, it's going to make Heathcliff miserable. It's going to make you dead. I'm sitting here at the stupidity of some of these characters, and I'm like, the hell, man? What? The reading experience couldn't have been any different. And I kind of wish I would have not read it a second time. The story was still, I mean, can I really say the story is fantastic if I think everything the characters are doing is completely backwards? Yeah, I guess I can, but it doesn't hold the same weight anymore. It has displaced itself in me. I don't want to claim this is my favorite book anymore, but at the same time, I think about where I was 18, 19 years ago, however many years it was, and think, if I had not read this book, if I had not clung to this love story so much, maybe some of the negative shit in my life wouldn't have happened. But at the same time, if I hadn't have done all that negative crap and gone through what I went through, which, let's be honest, not really horrible in the grand scope of things, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't have the husband that I have. I mean, my husband's sarcastic. And some people might call him an asshole sometimes. He's not hateful, he's not spiteful, he's not toxic, but he's sarcastic. Kind of like Heathcliff was. But he's like the Heathcliff that got to be with Catherine. So, can I really still call this my favorite book? This second read is really making me think about it. Like, can I? It's dictated a lot of my past. Because this is an experience. This book was an experience. It helped define who I became. Not entirely, but it is a stepping stone in my life at some point in time. To this day, up until I finished this book, this second read of it, I told people this was my favorite book. I would talk about this book. I watched multiple film adaptations of Wuthering Heights. If a Wuthering Heights adaptation came on, I watched it because I loved it so much. And even in the film adaptations, I don't remember hating Heathcliff this much. But I still was looking through those lenses of that 17-year-old, and now I'm looking through the eyes of a 34-year-old and thinking, I do not want any of that. I'm happily married, and I have a child, and I can't imagine for the life of me someone that I love being treated that way. Or treating someone that I love that way, or saying, I don't want them to be happy in heaven. I want them to stay with me and torment me. I cannot imagine opening a coffin and laying down in the coffin with said body like they do in the book, which, by the way, I must have blanked that one out because I don't remember that from the first read either, because when that came around, I was like, what? That's disgusting. Not romantic at all. I mean, I've seen it in the movies, but it always is done in a romantic kind of way, and I'm just... So, if you've ever experienced a book like this, it could be Wuthering Heights, it could be any book. Let me know in the comments down below. I think this is a great idea to start these discussions about these rereads and where we sit on them. Especially if you've had a large amount of time, like I have with Wuthering Heights, pass between reads on it. It's amazing how much stuff can change. And then in some instances, nothing changes. There are some books where I don't feel like anything's changed. So if you've experienced this, let me know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to do this, be my guest. Let me know. Tag me down in the box in it, and I will watch it. Because I think this is fantastic. I think this is a great idea and a great way to get discussion going about our reading, because reading is an experience. We do this and we talk about these books because we enjoy it. We enjoy the reading. We enjoy everything about them. So let's talk about everything about them. Let's talk about the experiences reading the books, not just the books themselves. So I'm going to leave you with this quote that when I was researching this, I found an article that interviewed some pretty well-known authors and what they thought of Wuthering Heights. It was for some anniversary of Emily Bronte. And this quote is from Alice Hoffman. And I'm going to leave you with this. Just so you know, I'm not the only one that feels this way. And this is from the By the Book interview with New York Times in 2014, if you want to look it up. And I quote, Emily Bronte, author of the greatest psychological novel ever written, with the most complex character ever conceived. Read Wuthering Heights when you're 18 and you think Heathcliff is a romantic hero. When you are 30, he's a monster. At 50, you see he's just human. So I'll see you again when I'm 50 and see if it still holds true, I guess. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's kind of a unique experience, but let me know what you think. I like to do this again, and I've got, right now, 5 other books that are, meet the criteria to do this video that I've set for myself. So, just let me know, and I will see you guys with the next one. Bye.